Happy New Year, everyone! Всем привет, друзья! Меня зовут Paul from the INTPaul channel. And everyone, meet my good friend, Lee.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Lee. Tell me anything that you would like to share with the audience, and what is your MBTI type?
So, first off, my MBTI type is INFJ. I am currently a full-time student. We're currently on our break right now, so we're just gonna relax for a bit, but I'm working and still taking a class this break, so I'm not really having a break, but you know, I like to be productive. I mean, relaxing is great, but I like to be like energetic and making sure that like I get stuff done. I am a disability rights advocate, and in my spare time, I love watching YouTube videos, a lot of YouTube videos. Netflix, though I haven't been on Netflix much lately, but I need to get back on it again, and just spending time with my dog, Daisy.
So apparently Lee is actually fairly new to the MBTI.
Mm-hmm.
However, over the past few months, she has inquired and eventually learned a lot about it from me, thanks to my knowledge, understanding, and expertise of the MBTI.
Mm-hmm.
And in regards to the cognitive function stacking of the INFJ, they lead with introverted intuition as their dominant function, followed by extroverted feeling as their auxiliary function,
Yes.
introverted thinking as their tertiary function, and extroverted sensing as their inferior function. And so in regards to the four functions I've mentioned, they're also closely related to the ENFJ, ESTP, and ISTP types. And also, in regards to the cognitive function stacking of both the INFJ and INTJ, they share the same dominant inferior function axis, just like all the other types. So they share the introverted intuition as the dominant function, and extroverted sensing as their inferior function. So, Lee, how did you come to the conclusion of being an INFJ rather than an INTJ?
I think it first started when I took Intro to Psychology. I think give or take a couple of semesters ago, and last spring. Last spring, before I transferred, and I remember taking the test quite a couple times, and I done this in the past. I think the first time I ever took an MBTI test was actually a couple years ago, and the first result I gotten was I think I told you it was like INTJ, but overall, like, it became more INFJ, and as I read the description for INFJ, I believe it relates to me more than INTJ. Yes, both INFJ and INTJ are a little bit similar in a sense, but I feel like I can relate more to INFJ because I have intuition. I do like being around people. Nevertheless, I like having my own space too, and just being observant at the same time.
Her FE is very obvious, as you can tell. Extrovert feeling. So also, Lee is currently dating someone with the exact same MBTI type as her. So Lee, what is it like dating someone like that? Who shares the same thought process as you do?
He's great. I love him, and I think what makes us get along so well is how we are extremely similar to each other. Like, when we first found out, and you were there when we were revealing like our MBTIs, I said INFJ,
Coincidence here.
And he said INFJ. I was like, oh my gosh, that it makes complete sense now how we get along so well, and he's such a great and amazing person.
I agree.
Yeah.
I approve.
Yay! So, speaking of relationships and attraction, so Paul, what are your thoughts on attraction?
Well, I consider myself to be a strongly aromantic asexual. However, it's a rather perplexing spectrum that I'm still trying to figure out, while the puzzle misses half of its building blocks, and the construction worker makes sure the blocks are put back in the right place to complete the puzzle again. And if anything, I also do consider myself to be a rather very atypical pansexual. But yeah, I know asexuality and pansexuality are probably paradoxical connections, and in a way I actually don't really adhere to nor abide by socially constructed generalizations or labels. Well, in other words, you can say that I'm a fundamentally aromantic yet pan-curious gray sexual, but who knows? I may completely change 10 to 20 years from now.
Yeah, and you know what? That's completely fine. I think as far as sexuality and attraction goes, I guess to each their own, and you know, I think it's important that we love each other, whoever we want to love each other, and I think that's important. So you are an INTP, but you received different results in the past, which was INTJ, correct? So
like 80% of the time.
80% of the time.
Of all the tests I've taken.
So what made you conclude that you were an INTP rather than an INFJ?
Well, back in around late 2013, I think, when I first discovered the MBTI, I've actually started out as the INFJ when I took the human metrics test, except I mostly gave out like ambivalent answers. But pretty consistently back then, I think, I was INTJ for the vast majority of the time. Then shortly afterwards, I very consistently tested as an INTJ ever since, and even still do today, followed by INTP only sometimes, and occasionally INFJ and ENTJ, and very occasionally ENTP, ICJ, and INFP, depending on which test I've taken though. And for about a couple years, I've actually used to think of myself as quite a very atypical and quirkier than average INTJ of average level simplistic intelligence. But I've only discovered the cognitive functions theory sometime back in 2015, so like about 2-ish years ago. And I definitely used to think that I led with introverted intuition as a dominant function for quite a while, until I have taken the cognitive functions test with an accurate, unbiased perspective multiple times, eventually finding out that I actually do lead with introverted thinking as a dominant function above all the functions, above both extroverted intuition and introverted intuition. And my introverted sensing function is somewhat higher than both my introverted intuition and extroverted sensing functions.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So despite like all the MBTI stuff that we talked about, let's move on to something quite different.